All right. Good evening, friends. It is really nice to see you all. I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight because we're going to talk about a topic that we probably aren't real good about. Just so imposter syndrome. Does that phrase even kind of give you anxiety? Like even when when you say that, makes you maybe slump in your chair and make you turn your camera off, whatever, because you don't feel like you belong. Well, don't keep your keep your cameras on, everybody. We want to see your faces. So I'm here to tell you that I am not an expert in knowing how to deal with imposter syndrome. That's not why I'm doing this call. I'm here to learn and to grow in this subject. So let's just discuss it for a while tonight. So, how does Webster's dictionary define imposter syndrome? Well, it says it's a persistent doubt concerning one's ability and or accomplishments accompanied by the fear of being exposed as a fraud despite evidence of one's ongoing success. So it stems from like a perceived inadequacy or in insecurities or incompetence. So please note the word perceived. All right. That's very important. So, interesting fact, in 1978, two psychologists were doing some research. They did a study that focused on high achieving professional women, and they published their findings in a psychotherapy journal. Now, don't you find that a little bit interesting that they studied high performing women? That's you guys. That's you. Well, these two ladies then came up with the term imposter phenomenon, not syndrome. So think of that word, phenomenon. It's different than syndrome. When you think of the word syndrome, you think of something, that something's wrong. You think of that there's a problem, there's a syndrome. So, but phenomenon is more of a revelation, something to be observed. So keep that in mind as we're talking about this. All right. Okay, so remember the Webster definition of imposter syndrome: perceived thoughts. Okay. It's thoughts that keep popping up. And these thoughts and fears lead to common threads of negative evaluation, negative self talk, and distorted perceptions of reality. And because the thoughts feel so very real, they dictate. Now, listen to these three things: they dictate our actions, the way we relate to other people, and how we approach challenges. Guys, that's what we do every day. We take action, we relate to others, and we approach challenges. So we have to find a way to deal with the negative self talk and these imposter syndrome feelings. So I'm going to ask you a few questions first to see if you are dealing with imposter syndrome. So keep a tab. There's 7 things. Keep a tab on how many you feel or have felt in the past, if you're feeling them now, and then put that number in the chat as we go or after I'm done with them. So 7. Number 1, do you agonize over even the smallest mistakes or flaws in your work? Number 2, do you attribute your success to luck or to outside factors? Number 3, do you believe that you have fooled others into thinking that you are more skilled than what you really are? Number 4, are you sensitive to even constructive criticism? Number 5, do you feel like you will inevitably be found out as a phony or a fraud? Number 6, do you downplay your own expertise, even in areas where you are genuinely more skilled than other people. And number 7, do you feel like everyone else knows what they're doing and you're just lost, or everyone else has it all together and you just can't figure it out and you wished you could be farther along? Hello, social media, right? We see it all the time on social media. So now we're going to talk about common types of imposter syndromes. And we're just going to focus on 4, and they all start with the letter P. And that's, so maybe write them down. It's easy to remember that way. So the letter P. Before I tell you them, it's possible to fit in more than one of these categories. So see if you recognize yourself in any of these patterns of thoughts and behaviors. These 4 P's are really feelings that can have significant impact on our personal and professional lives, leading to loss of relationships and even burnout. So it's, we talk about burnout sometimes in our business too, but even in our relationships. So it's important to recognize these feelings. When you recognize and be self-aware of these feelings, you can work to overcome them, right? Don't dismiss that. Acknowledge those thoughts and behaviors. Acknowledging these thoughts and behaviors is a step in understanding where we need to grow and where we have to learn. So looking at this as an opportunity to grow rather than a gap or even an inadequacy, we can make this work for us and not against us. So that inner voice can be a valuable tool and a valuable source of self-awareness that can lead to growth. Okay, so now the 4 P's. All right. Number 1, perfectionism. We're scared of getting something wrong. Number 2, paralysis, hiding from what has to get done, pretending we don't see that what is freaking us out, basically. And we're freezing. So paralysis. Number 3, people pleasing. So not having boundaries and worrying about what other people think. That was a huge one for me. Huge. So that's number 3, people pleasing. Number 4, procrastination. Avoiding what needs to be done rather than just diving in and getting it done. So these all have at their root fear. And you can put in the chat, which P maybe you struggle with the worst, or maybe if there's a couple of them. So remember, at the root, they all have to do with fear. If you have a fear of being found out, ask yourself what you are afraid of being found out about. What is fear telling you? What is that fear telling you? Remember, where does fear come from? Fear is a liar, and we have to carry ourselves with a level of Godfidence. All right? We need to faith it till we make it. We must believe what God sees about us. And when we have Godfidence, we will show up with confidence. True confidence comes in knowing your worth and understanding the value you add to this table here. So show up, put your shoulders back, put a smile on, show up how you aspire to be. And then you will start to silence those fear voices. Okay, so now I'm going to give you a couple tips that can help you overcome these feelings of imposter syndrome. Number 1, name it to tame it. We talked about that already, being self-aware. Darkness does not remain when light comes in. So expose those feelings. Expose it for what it is. Name it. Okay, number 2, flip the script. Give your brain a chance to see what you have accomplished up until this moment. So after this call, I would love for you to do a little bit of an exercise. Take just a couple minutes. Get a piece of paper, write down all the things that you have accomplished in the past with all aspects of your life. I mean, with if you're married, children, um, your business, whatever. Flip the script from, oh, I'm not good enough, to look at all of the things that I have accomplished. Look how I have grown in the past few months. Look how I've grown in the past few years. Look how I've grown through book clubs, through Monday night calls. Write those things down so that you can see them, and then you can flip the script. Okay, number 3, separate your feelings from reality. Sometimes our feelings lie to us, and they're telling us a different story than the truth. Feelings are produced from our thoughts. They feed off of each other. Well, the devil throws arrows at us saying, I'm an imposter. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. Who do I think I am to be doing this? But what do we do with those arrows? Do we remain stuck, or do we take them out, recognize that arrow as a liar, as a lie, separate then what you feel from what you know? Speak life over yourself. We are lights. We are doing the work that God has called us to do for His glory all the time, and His glory anyway. So it's not about us. All right? These are holy facts. Number 4, stop comparing. We can look at someone and start feeling much less than. We can envy. We can be jealous. What if instead of comparing in a negative way, we just got curious about that person that we're comparing ourselves to? What if we recognize in them and what we can honor about them? And then after we stop comparing, create curiosity. Okay? Create curiosity, and then go to connecting, which is number 5. Create connection with the people that we are actually comparing ourselves to. We are all unique. We might be in the same profession, but we all have different stories. We all have different abilities. So we all have value to add. Number 6, talk to somebody. Sometimes that is not as harsh. Sometimes they are not as harsh as you are about yourself. Talk it out to somebody. Sure, you can always journal about it, and we talk about that a lot, to journal. But talking about it with a trusted individual, they can help you move forward. Accept someone's heartfelt compliments. God will put the right people in the path to support you when you ask for help. Number 7, turn that around and help others. Encourage others. By giving time to others, you learn so much about yourself. It can remind you of what you have learned in the past, what you already know, and also humbly acknowledge the work you still have to do. And you can help them reject their feelings of imposter syndrome by reflecting back to them their value, their talents, and their abilities. So that's 7 tips for helping with imposter syndrome feelings. No, there's one more. Sorry, number 8. Stop holding yourself to expectations that you don't hold others to. Okay? Why do we expect so much from ourselves and we give so much grace to other people? We're called to love the Lord and to love others as ourselves. So we have to love ourselves if we are to love others. And we know that we can love ourselves because God loved us first. So now I would like to take an analogy, give you an analogy. There will be times that you outgrow your pot. Think of a planted flower. Flower grows and it grows and it just it outgrows that pot, right? So you have to transplant that flower into another bigger pot. So imagine yourself in a brand new pot. It's bigger. It's uncomfortable, right? God is putting us in new pots in order that we grow, in order that we blossom and become more of what God calls us to be. So every new level, that imposter syndrome will be knocking on the door. But think of it then as an phenomenon. Remember that you've never been to this level before, right? You can't be an expert at this level yet. So when those thoughts come out, examine them and ask, what am I going to do with these thoughts? Am I going to slow down and get honest about these thoughts? Am I going to name it, to claim it, and to tame it? Love that person in the mirror, guys. The verse that is so helpful with imposter syndrome or phenomenon is 2 Corinthians 12, verse 9. My grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. God's power and strength is perfected in our weaknesses. Think about that. We have to recognize that we aren't perfect, right? We don't have it all together all the time. But we have God on our side, and we are going to keep going. We're going to be the light on the hill. So see yourself the way that God sees you. Imposter syndrome has nothing on us because we know who we are in Christ. So now I could stop here, right? But I want to invite you to think about imposter syndrome differently. We talked about all of the imposter syndrome being, a negative thing. Give your brain a different perspective on imposter syndrome. What if we redefine the term? What if we see imposter syndrome as a positive indicator that we are working toward success? Think about that. When we have these feelings, it usually means we're a beginner at something, right? We are working at leveling up. We are doing something that's meaningful to us. We are entering a new phase in our life. And this phase is very important to us. So let's go over a few reasons why we can think of imposter syndrome as a good thing. First of all, it keeps us humble. It's hard to have a big head when we have all these feelings of imposter syndrome. So it definitely keeps us humble. Number two, it's proof that we are learning. We're growing and we're gaining more experience. Number three, it gives us the desire to improve. Four, it causes us to have empathy with others that are going through the same thing. Those same imposter syndrome or phenomenon feelings. Number five, it teaches us to get comfortable with being out of our comfort zone. So let's be real. We may never, ever really eradicate the feelings of imposter syndrome. Not if we want to continue to grow. But let that feeling drive you to build skills, to acquire knowledge, and to gain experience. Let that feeling push you out of your comfort zone, even if the challenges that you're facing feels way out of your league, even if that challenge feels scary. So remember way at the beginning how those two ladies studied high performing women? That's you, remember? You are entrepreneurs. And as entrepreneurs, you have felt the life giving energy that comes from serving your customers. You get fired up when you find solutions to problems. You can't wait to see the fruit of the work of your hands. Why? Because you were created in the image of our creative God. So entrepreneurship provides a place where you get to commune with God through the process of serving others. It provides a way which you can love God and love others. Entrepreneurship is a legitimate pursuit that, when done well, brings honor and glory to God. You can speak confidently about what you do because God is in you and with you. So instead of wallowing in that imposter syndrome pit, you are empowered to do what you're called to do and to do it well. So thank you all for your attention. I pray that this is valuable to you and that you can implement some of what I've learned so far, because I know I needed to study this topic. So thank you once again. Good night, everybody.